Yo, you tuned in to Gorilla Cross Radio.
Broadcasting live from downtown Las Vegas, you're tuned in to Gorilla Cross Radio.
Fun. That's what we're having in Las Vegas. Welcome to Levels, and we are live, baby. We just got word it's snowing in upstate New York, but here in the desert, no snow. There's a nip in the weather. Homelessness has been outlawed in Vegas, apparently. We're just learning things coming down the line. And Fremont Street is a mess. So if you plan on visiting Vegas anytime soon, don't come downtown. It's a mess right now. But thank you for joining us. Welcome to Levels. I'm Jeremy Long, joined as always by the Sportsnista.
What up?
Cassandra Cusino, what is happening? How are you?
Man, feeling good not to be in these streets today. Get to sit down and rest my knuckles.
Rest your knuckles. I'm going to collect payments.
Yeah, there you go.
Payments from people, and we are going to have some fun. We have Jay Chaudhry. There you go. From Break Media. Sorry, Jay, for ruining your name there. He's going to join us. We're going to talk about KSI Logan Paul 2, the giant pay-per-view that's coming up. And I never thought I always hoped and dreamed that I'd get to see two YouTubers beat the snot out of each other. But now we get to see it again. And arguably, what place does it have in today's boxing and mixed martial arts scene? So he's going to let us know that and all the marketing behind that. First, let's start with a little bit of news. Walt Harris, the news that's kind of breaking today, his stepdaughter is missing. Serious things going down. She's been missing since October 23rd or 24th, I believe, and some new developments today. Cece, what's happening with Walt Harris, UFC fighter, and his stepdaughter?
Yeah, so Anaya Blanchard, I believe is the last name. So she's a student at Auburn. She was last seen in a convenience store. Since then, the police have put together some clues to what might have happened to her, including some front-end damage to her car. They've also issued a suspect in the happenings, and apparently this individual was not just seen at the same convenience store at the same time, has a history of abducting and causing harm to individuals at and around convenience stores. And so hopefully they find this individual really, really quickly, especially since they suspect foul play. Very sad, very troubling.
Yeah, that's nuts, man. I read just a little bit of that. Just kind of looking at it. How are you out on bond and bail for murder and kidnapping charges? Right. I thought those were the ones that they kept you behind bars. It's not like you stole from In-N-Out, stole a grilled cheese from In-N-Out. Which
I might, but so the only time I've ever seen that before, I believe, was when Robert Blake was out on a capital murder crime on bail. This guy don't look like he was Beretta. So it's interesting to see that somebody who has been charged with that caliber of crime is actually out in the streets like that. Scary stuff.
It is scary stuff. And thoughts and prayers with their family right now. You and I are both parents, and I can't imagine a worse hell.
Have me thinking all kinds of things. All kinds
of stuff, man. Moving on to some boxing, some MMA news. The Canelo Kovalev fallout. We see Canelo pick up the knockout in round 11. You were there.
Woo,
what was the atmosphere like? How is the new champ looking with that shiny belt?
Yeah, I was there for a very long time. I think I arrived at the arena at like 3 p.m., left at like 3 a.m. Local time. It was great. I mean, there are a few fighters that when they walk in the arena, you know exactly who it is. Canelo's one of them. Manny Pacquiao is the other one. And so you can hear all the music, you hear the fans, you hear them chanting Canelo and all kinds of other stuff in Spanish that I can't understand. By the way, stuff in Spanish, Canelo has a new translator, and my Spanish is not very good. In fact, it's awful. I even know that his translator was saying some real off-brand stuff. So somebody needs to.
You know what? You got to start saving money. You cut the cable bill. You cut the translator. Something like that, man. Those ducats start adding up after a while. You know, he's got to have that Stars and that Amazon Prime. And you got to get ready for Disney Plus.
Oh, there's
So you got to get a new translator. It costs a little bit less than that.
Jeez, but it was great. It was a great atmosphere, great night for boxing until, you know, the thing happened with the thing, and we had to be held up.
Kovalev, where does he go? Very quickly, where does he go from here? 36 years old. In-N-Out Burger. Get you some slippers and have you a burger. It's been a great ride, man. You had the straps for a minute. It's time. 34-4-1. Scary in his day, and his prime, his power. Cause a lot of guys to not want to mess around with this guy. But Kovalev looking bad in his last few fights. Most fighters go out of their shield.
He was Kovalev. He wasn't the Crusher.
Yeah.
He didn't show up like that.
He wasn't. He didn't seem like he was throwing a whole lot of power punches. And honestly, he kind of looked like that guy, like, you know, a guy you see at the supermarket or something like that. Your accountant. Well, your shady Russian accountant.
I never had one of those. So
yeah, well, you need to up your game. You need to get to a different level. And very quickly, I know we're going to get to the zone and their kind of weird moves there, letting UFC finish up to hopefully get some more subscriptions and things like that, more buys for their services and everything. But overall, the feel at T-Mobile, did it feel like home for Canelo?
Oh, yeah.
All the way
we
through?
were at MGM. And as you walk in, you know, MGM is a village. So as you walk through the village, you could see all of the flags and you can hear all the music and the sounds and plenty of cervezas and tequila floating out. So great, you know, atmosphere for boxing. And I thought overall it was a good night. The
one thing I don't like is when a company is that involved and has that much money in a fighter that's also, you know, it's airing their fighters' fights and everything. Because, I mean, the cheesy video at the beginning, you know, like, oh, tonight you're going to see a new champion crowned and all that. Come on, man.
You know, with the cheese, I think the cheese is good, man. I mean, put the cheese on a sandwich. You like that kind of stuff? I don't. At least pretend to have some unbiased opinion on who might win. They're $365 million. Ain't no bias.
Even Chris Mannix. Okay, I know we got to move on, Nate Diaz. But Chris Mannix, who's on the production team, and don't get me started on DAZN's production. I hate their production. Chris Mannix is I respect him as a journalist.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be on TV. Yeah. Calling any kind of fights and everything. But every time, like, how did you give any of those first rounds to Canelo? I don't understand it.
Listen,
but I get
Stevie Wonder was there, and even Stevie knew that Kovalev was ahead, and it was.
Yeah, but still, Chris Mannix had a 3-3 going in. So, come on, whatever. All right, Nate Diaz says that he is done with the fight game. Post on Instagram today. Peace up, A-Town down. I'm out. Ain't doing this no more. Do you really buy his retirement talk?
I do. Nate Diaz throws some of the best tantrums in all of MMA because it sounds like real tough, you know? And he's coming from this tough guy, BMF. Man, just because you don't get your way, you take your gloves and go home. Is that what's happening? So he could. I mean, and listen, he's been in back-to-back wars. That cut that Masvidal opened up was actually the same cut that he sustained when he fought Pettis. Was it Pettis? Why am I thinking Pettis? He's been pieced up a lot. Yeah, he's been pieced up a lot. And you know what? He's got other things going on. He made some money, but he didn't make Canelo money that night. So depending on how he invested his ducats, he got a new baby. We gonna see. Yeah, we'll see. Boxing, MMA, combat sports in general, very that sport where people always say, you know, I'm leaving, and then they come back. It's a very expensive sport. There's a lot of easy money to be made. Easy saying, I just get punched in the face, right? Yeah, you know, that's easy enough for some people. We'll see. I mean, like you said, Nate Diaz throws some of the best fits in the business. He's 34 years old, though, 20-12. He won the Ultimate Fighter 5. And
8 fight of the night bonuses.
Yeah.
The most in UFC history.
Take
So
your gloves
the
and
guy,
go
the guy
home.
squabs. You know, that's his legacy.
Yeah.
If there was an MMA Hall of Fame, which there should be, and there probably will be one
Yeah,
day.
there is. There's a UFC Hall of Fame, and he should be.
Yeah.
You know, he's got the resume.
And if there was one away from UFC, there he would honestly be in that one too. John Jones chooses Dominic Reyes over Corey Anderson to face next. Do you like this? Do you like that he chooses Dominic Reyes, or would you rather him see Corey Heavy Hands Anderson?
I want to see Heavy Hands Anderson. Come on now. At light heavyweight, there's not a whole lot of competition. They were grooming some folks, so you saw Luke Rockhold was supposed to be next, and you saw Luke Rockhold is done. You know, his jaw is still wired up. So, yeah, he's done.
Yeah.
But, yeah, this fight I'm not that excited about. People will watch because it's John. I think everybody's waiting for John Jones to lose.
Man, they're the next one up.
Jimmy Walker was another one that was being groomed.
Yeah.
And, ooh, that was brutal.
Johnny Walker gets the hype train.
Johnny Walker.
Jimmy Walker, Joe Walker, don't matter.
Don't matter.
He got smashed by Corey Anderson.
Standing
So that
TKO.
train is done. I'm not saying he doesn't have the power, probably couldn't, pose some threats down the line, but if you can't take those Corey Anderson shots, you ain't ready for John Jones.
No,
Reyes,
that's
12-0, 6-0 in the UFC, currently the number 4 ranked light heavy. Now that's not official from the UFC. That's just who John Jones and his team picked out.
Yeah.
They said, we want this guy.
Well,
he's the hardest guy to fight.
He had all that kickery,
He
and
did.
that last fight, when you
Lots
fight
of
a
kicks.
Muay Thai black belt, you just want to sit down for a minute and pick an easier opponent. And he can, he's getting a big piece of chicken, and he can choose who's going to be
But
on
you know
his
what?
meal plan.
And some people may be upset about it. I'm not, because you can't say John Jones ducked anybody. He wrecked shop.
Yeah.
On his rise and his climb and getting the belt. And after he got the belt, he wrecked shop on everybody they put in front of him. So he's absolutely not ducking Corey Anderson. He just wants this guy first, and then he'll get to Corey Anderson. And it's all about who can help him sell the most pay-per-views at this point. Cormier don't want no more of this.
Nah,
so, who's going to help him?
Fight Stipe,
I'll get it there. I'll fight him.
I will not.
I will not. Actually, yeah, Stipe, I can see that one coming down the line. They're going to build it to a fever and everything. So we're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we're going to hop on the line with Break Media co-founder Jay Chaudhry. We're going to talk KSI Logan Paul 2 and why you should absolutely give your money to YouTube and us. Absolutely. Coming up in about 30 seconds.
Yo, you tuned in to Gorilla Cross Radio.
This is your guy, Dre Bailey.
And your man, Goose Thomas.
Tune in to Let the Ball Bounce on Gorilla Cross Radio.
Every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific Coast Time.
And every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific Coast Time. Your guy, Dre Bailey.
And your man, Goose Thomas.
And if you scared,
you better go to church.
Broadcasting live from downtown Las Vegas, you're tuned in to Gorilla Cross Radio.
All right. We are back. Welcome back to Levels. Coming to you from Gorilla Cross Studios, downtown Las Vegas. You can join in after this interview, actually. Anytime. Give us a call, 702-608-3259. We talk MMA, we talk boxing, and the crazy things going on with it. And you know what? There's no crazier thing to see the rise of the YouTube fighter, and how just a couple years ago this was a joke, but now it's incredibly serious business going down here. And we're joined by Jay Chaudhry. Jay, you there?
Yes, sir. How's it going?
Hey, Jay, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me. Hey, Cassandra, what's going on, girl?
Hey, good to hear you, man. Good to hear you.
All right,
Jay. Let's look at this. I mean, first, let's go back a little bit here. Let's talk about DAZN and their card and everything. And I'm sure you watched along with all of us here. Do you think they hurt their brand a little bit with the whole main card fiasco? They let UFC finish up. Oscar De La Hoya supposedly makes a call to Dana White and says, hey, you know what? I'm going to hold off my main event so that your main event finishes so other people can join us. And what do you make of all of this kind of back and forth? And we see an hour of Canelo and Kovalev going back to sleep on their respective couches, literally doing that.
Yeah, it was quite the image to see that when it was live, to see Canelo on the couch and Kovalev on the couch. And, I think that entire ordeal was confusing as hell, man. Number one, DAZN should have paid a lot more attention to the fact that American boxing fans are emotionally attached to the sport. So the boxing community is already very small. There's only a few thousand people who really drive the narrative forward. Seeing that there's already been so much beef between UFC and boxing in recent years, I think someone at head office DAZN should have made a better executive decision to either A, move the date from the beginning, or B, keep the fight the same time as it was intended and let Canelo go on when he wanted to. But there is another side to the coin. Now, as someone working in the digital and sports particularly, I can totally understand the geeky analytical side to this, because there's obviously some tech geek at DAZN who really wanted to see how much the subscriptions would go up the roof if they swayed the time. Now, again, DAZN is pretty private with the numbers, so we can only take the word for it when they say that it made sense to do it. But even if it made sense, Jeremy, like a simple apology to the fight fans would have been enough for us to get over it.
Yeah, it's kind of bananas because you heard Dana White at the end of his event saying how he got this frantic call from Oscar, and they were actually... He talked with Oscar a couple of weeks before the event saying, man, you got to move the date. And so they had, this Mexican standoff pretty much where Oscar refused to move the date. But they could have done some things during the broadcast. So when Ryan Garcia has that early knockout, instead of holding the entire event, they could have actually just put the thing on pause, or actually they could have started later. That was my point. They could have started the whole card later in the night, because you just don't know how long either fight is going to happen, whether it's going to be UFC or boxing. But I think a lot of this goes back to a feud between Oscar De La Hoya and Dana White, and they had that pissing contest, and Oscar blinked. Yeah. I mean, Oscar blinked. I can't. There's no excuses for it.
Well, it's not even just Oscar; it's the entire platform's responsibility to, be more responsible to the fight game and the fight audiences. And they like Paulie said this best on his podcast yesterday. He said, somebody has got to know from the beginning what the fuck is going on that night. And if you guys knew that these two worlds were going to clash, somebody had a total opportunity to, better take advantage of the executive decision to pull back or pull forward. And we decided to pull back. And of course, it upset the boxing community at large.
Yeah, I don't know all what it says about the sport's biggest draw, the sport's supposed biggest draw in Canelo Alvarez and one of its premier companies in Golden Boy, that you would blink on a UFC fight card that, I mean, it was a good fight card, but it wasn't. I mean, you didn't have Conor McGregor in the main event or anything. I mean, you didn't have John Jones at the main event or anything. So your top stars against not even their top stars. And I mean, I know Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal, had their own fans and stuff like that. But man, what does it really say about your boxing's top star if they're scared to go head to head with these guys?
That actually,
I don't think it was an issue of them being scared. I think it was just more an issue about a business strategy, a business call, because DAZN is still very much testing the audience. It's their first year, and I think for them it's very important to measure the tick behind the subscription. So for them, it was like, okay, we're going up against one of the biggest UFC events of the year. Let's see how much fan conversion we can kind of get out of this. And they shot themselves in the foot because they totally forgot to include the fact that boxing fans in America are very fucking touchy and sensitive. Don't do that.
Right. Absolutely.
So speaking of touchy and sensitive, Break Media is actually leading the charge in terms of telling fighter stories and fan acquisition. Can you tell us, what's the importance actually in 2019 and how fans are acquired specifically for fighters in sports?
Well, yeah, I mean, simply put, we're living in we're going into 2020 now, and boxing has always been such an old school sport. And due to the lack of new generation taking lead and control, everything about the sport is fading amongst millennials. And I personally don't think that promoters, networks, or managers are doing shit all when it comes to putting our sport back into the forefront of American sports. I don't think our promoters, managers, or networks are doing shit all when it comes to brand awareness of our athletes outside the sport. And I believe the current state of boxing as a whole is a fucking mess. I mean, everything from the sanctioning bodies to the egotistical promoters who are going against each other to the equally egotistical fighters who are now think that they don't have to fight the fights that the fans want. It's chaos, and it's their own fault. Boxing is making decisions strictly for short-term gain, and it's one of the worst things you can do for the longevity of a business. And this is where fan acquisition, like you just mentioned, Cassandra, comes into play, because it is the key to monopolize, to create longevity in a sport, and interest and overall passion for the sport to continue living and breathing. And there's only one case study ever since Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson in boxing where I personally saw fan acquisition work, and that was through Floyd Mayweather. Floyd became not only a superstar because of his boxing record and style, but Floyd became Floyd because he catered to his fans. And when I say fans, I actually mean his haters, because the haters were the ones who were creating content deep in the trenches where the attention actually converted, like on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. And he built his brand against his haters. And then they continued to monopolize on that because he started using that notion that people would pay to watch him lose, right? And then this continued. But, a guy like Floyd comes once an era, and that's another thing. People need to stop thinking that they're next Floyd, because you got to start building your own brand, your own talent, and showcase your own personality to attract a fan base for yourself.
And there are fighters out there who actually are consciously trying to build their own brand. You did something recently with Pizza Hut and one of your clients, didn't you?
Yeah, that was Money Powell, actually. So, Jeremy, check this out. Are you familiar with Money Powell?
Yes.
Yeah, so Money Powell, he fought twice earlier this year, right, on PBC on Fox, and both of his post-fight interviews went viral because he kept calling out Pizza Hut to sponsor him, and and no one was taking initiative, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, his promoter's not doing anything, his agent, his manager, the networks, nobody's taking advantage of this, open pitch. So it blew my mind, and I'm like, you have this superstar kid with a great personality, nobody's taking charge, so here we go. So I signed him up to our agency, and then within 2 weeks we collaborated with Pizza Hut and got them to sponsor him, and we created a really cool special called Money Buys Happiness, where he went into his local high school with all this fantastic pizza for lunch, and we organized all this with Pizza Hut, and now we're actually looking to expand this into a full-out 7-part travel and food series next year.
Why don't more fighters do things like that? Why is there such a lack of creativity?
I don't think it's a lack of creativity. I think fighters are genuinely interested into getting out there. It's that there's just a lack of interest from their promoter or manager to make it happen for them, because boxing doesn't really have a sports agency that represents athletes like NFL, NBA, and NHL does. So because they don't have a sports agent, they just have a sports, or AKA boxing manager, who, no offense, isn't exactly a sports agent or educated in the field of digitization. They don't know what to tell them, so that's where we come in, and we find that every single fighter of ours, every single athlete of ours, is excited to get into this world of YouTube and Instagram, TV, and TikTok content, because they know it's working.
Oh my gosh! So speaking of YouTube, now I just, in full disclosure, I'm in the Get Off My Lawn crew when it comes to this fight, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say about KSI and Logan Paul, and like, who's still mad? Why are you still mad?
Well, are you not for it? Jeremy, what about you? Are you for it?
You know what? I will be honest. The first fight I was not for. I thought it was kind of a mockery and everything. And then I saw the numbers when these guys actually threw down, and I was like, you know what? I was totally wrong. This is wonderful. It's only in this day and age, and it's so beautiful because it takes this certain point in time where these guys can generate this many eyeballs and this much, and these guys aren't professional fighters. I'm not trying to diminish either one of these guys, but they're not professionals. It's not Floyd Mayweather. It's not Canelo. These are these are just some guys who do stupid crap on YouTube, and now they're heading up a major pay-per-view. I love it.
Yeah.
Well,
I think Cassandra in the beginning was feeling the same way too. How's your opinion on it now, Cassandra?
I still feel the same. Listen, but Devin Haney is on the undercard. When
Yeah.
you get someone like Devin Haney who like just acquired his championship, now he's got to go out and
Yeah.
earn it.
Yeah.
But a true up and coming star in the sport, and I think someone like Devin is very important.
It adds an
for
air of
boxing.
legitimacy to that card.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it adds legitimacy to KSI and Logan Paul, but what does it say for Devin Haney, who is an actual real professional boxer?
I think it exposes them to
Yeah.
people that otherwise would not know who Devin Haney is.
Look, I'm a watch.
It's the same. It's the same reason that Tyson Fury is on WWE doing this thing
And
with
now
the
he's
big
on
show.
UFC. Well, look, I mean, it's no surprise that kids today are more interested in Fortnite players than YouTubers, solely based on the distribution availability of today's content. So here you have two awesome content creators who may not have spent years grinding and hustling in the gyms all their careers, but they certainly put in the work. Okay, these guys still grinded and hustled behind producing content every single day to get where they are now with over 60 million subscribers, billions of views, international brand deals. I mean, that's still work, you know?
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, obviously the boxing community isn't or doesn't follow these two creators enough to know that boxing was actually one of KSI's personal passions, because there's countless logs of this guy from years ago where he first started sharing his passion for the sport. So in a way, it's like you have grown men dogging on a kid for wanting to go pro, number one. Because the first show that they did was completely without the help of DAZN and Matchroom.
Wait a minute.
So now
How
we
old
have-
are they? How old are they? Are
They're like in their late 20s, I think,
they're not
maybe
kids.
early 20s.
They are not kids. They are-
No, but what I mean is, like, we can't hate on somebody who's wanting to go pro, can
Right,
we? Like, if,
no.
if somebody wants to
Right.
go pro and he wants to really professionally box, and KSI he's been pretty vocal about that. This isn't something to make money for him. He's always wanted to box, and that's why. If anything, Logan Paul came out of nowhere and said, "Hey, I'd face you," for the celebrity
Yeah.
status of it all. But now even Logan's taking it seriously. So we can't really judge these guys for wanting to become professional, because they're not at all disrespecting the sport at all. Like, they've never made any comical relief out of this professional fighters at all.
KSI's in town right now training with the Mayweathers.
yeah. He's
You know, I
being
mean,
trained by
the
Jack.
first fight family of boxing. He's
Yeah.
doing it serious, and you know, kind of looking at these guys and just where they've come from. I mean, how? I guess what do you see might be some of the long term effects and ripples from cards like this? Because
question.
this is the second one, but you know there's going to be more coming through.
Yeah, it's a good question. And obviously the buzz around this fight is bigger than any pay-per-view since, like you said, Mayweather McGregor. And boxing finally has an opportunity to breathe a little bit now, expand our horizon. How else do we expect the sport to grow, guys? Through broadcast, which nobody's fucking watching?
Is
Through
TV
radio,
dying?
which nobody's listening to?
I mean,
Pardon?
is TV dying then? I mean, are you saying that we're at that kind of breaking point now where, like, hey, or do we just need to include it in the mix now, and it's not just the last Coca-Cola in the desert anymore?
Well, that's the thing, and it kind of intertwines into, this whole, is boxing dying or is TV dying? And it's all about the current state of communication. Like it or not, YouTube and digital content is the way that the future is headed, because these kids are so emotionally attached to these apps, like we once were through radio, TV, and newspapers from back in the day. And just like Jeremy just mentioned, like Devin Haney, for example, is fighting on the undercard. He's going to be more well-known than Errol Spence, Terence Crawford, Lomachenko combined after November 9th,
Good
simply
point.
because there's going to be so much more mass awareness around his brand.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And then
Now, is TV... Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, I always enjoy the talk about TV dying, because people have said ever since the internet came out, TV's gonna be dead. Just like they said radio was gonna be dead when TV came out, and so on and so forth and everything. It just, the pie shape just gets different. That's all it is.
different. Yeah,
And
the
for these
distribution.
sports like this, boxing is always going to have a certain stigma about it. MMA is always going to have a certain stigma about it. But you got to go and meet people where they are.
Yeah,
If they're
on their
not buying
phones.
Thank you.
pay-per-views on TV, and they're more comfortable now, more than ever any period of time, and YouTube can handle it now, and they're more comfortable buying pay-per-views on YouTube, then why not offer it to him on
Let's
YouTube?
go, serve it up. I mean,
Hey,
Stephen
serve it up.
Espinoza has actually been talking about the data that he's acquired about reaching out to young people when it comes to boxing. Jay, have you taken a look at that at all?
Yeah, I did. Let's talk about that. So Stephen Espinoza, he recently shared some thoughts on data that made some rounds on Twitter, and I want to take a stab at the rebuttal here. So traditional metrics, or as they say, reporting versus black and white quantifiable data that's on the back end are very different things. The attribution models in the digital and web landscapes are the kinds you can actually measure, trace back, and see the entire pipeline from bottom up. This system that I'm talking about is way more explosive and desirable for the new age advertiser. What Stephen Espinoza was talking about in the article was Nielsen ratings. Nielsen, by no means, is a quantifiable database. It's not. It's installed in less than 30,000 homes across America, for one, and those users are straight up not enough of a cesspool to be dictating today's viewership. Today's viewership can be traced, altered, directed, distributed, and this is exactly where the future of advertising is headed. And this is exactly the pool where DAZN is playing in, guys. So check this out. From my professional point of view, one of the main reasons why DAZN doesn't release the sub-counts of viewership is because they're literally waiting out for the cord to cut. Once that cord eventually cuts, everybody else has to play catch-up. And by then, it's an open field, and everybody will be trying to race for who has the most subscriptions and who has the better app. And so who do you think is going to be in the lead by then?
Well,
so dear Stephen Espinoza,
yeah.
I'm a huge fan of yours for a long time. You've done some amazing things for the sport, but clearly technology and giving fight fans premium boxing content isn't part of Showtime's strategy to stay ahead. And I'm sorry, but that's where you're going to lose.
Yeah, you have to be able to attract a new audience. So when you talk about the Nielsen ratings, how that literally works is they mail you something to your house, and you actually track it on a piece of paper. You mail it back. You install these boxes on your television. What generation does that sound like? That sounds like boomer and above, doesn't it?
Right.
It does not sound
there's
like...
no 14, there's no 14, 17, 18, 19-year-old who's fucking with a Nielsen box at home. I'm sorry, there's not. Quantifiable data for the younger audiences is only measured through the current state of communication, which is mobile apps and obviously digital conversion. There's no 14-year-old watching TV at home. I'm sorry. There just isn't.
Right. Well, I mean, they are, but that's because they're at their mama and daddy's house. But when they go someplace else and they're watching things, because I see it all day, there are young people watching things on their phones.
And that's where the future is at.
Right.
And that's where the future is at.
Yep. On their phone. So do you think DAZN holding the main event, was that a pimp holding up the main event? Considering kind of the future of the sport in that respect, was it a pimp move or did they get played?
No, I mean, DAZN right now, what they're doing, look, they've already shown massive success in every other sports genre on their app. That's why they're the number one most downloaded app in the world. Boxing is a new genre for them for sure. Yeah, they're going to make a lot of mistakes because they don't really understand the boxing community here in the States. And, Bob Arum said that best too about Eddie Hearn. He said, you don't know fuck all about American boxing fans. He made a joke out of it.
That was a quote.
In a way, it's true, because maybe perhaps, DAZN is coming into a brand new playing field, but do they have this track record to prove that the app can be a success? Yes, they can. And they've proved this over and over again in other sports. This is just another sport to tackle for them. It's going to take them some time to get used to, but they're definitely headed in the direction that's going to work because technology is moving forward, not backwards. Right. Nobody's going to say, stop using apps, let's go watch TV again. That's not going to happen. So eventually everybody's going to have to play catch up. And this is why I really do feel, guys, that everybody's going to be playing on an equal playing field very soon, and then that's when DAZN's going to be like, now we're going to show you our numbers. Now follow up Fox. Now follow up ESPN. Now follow us Showtime. Right. And then that's where the real competition starts. But that's where it gets really interesting for boxing because now the money isn't going to be the exact same money that they were used to from before because advertisers are going to start cutting their funnel too. Yeah. So everything is going to change. And it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching. So speaking of watching, what you got coming up next? Where can we find you and your stuff?
Well, you know where to find me, breakmediagroup.com. Instagram, Twitter is producer_JC. I'm a huge supporter of Cassandra and Jeremy, and I'm going to be an immediate fan of yours as well. I really love what you guys are going on, and, I'm here to help support the movement as well.
We appreciate it so much, Jay. Appreciate it. Lots of great insight, Jay. Man, we can't wait to talk to you again down the road.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks a lot, Cassandra.
Peace out. Thank you.
All right. There we go, man.
All right, guys.
I love the business of boxing.
Yeah.
I love the business of what's coming up and everything. We're going to take a very, very short break. 30 seconds. Well, we're going to be right back. We're going to talk a little bit middleweight division and what's coming up with the UFC.
Let's do it.
You're going to want to call in.
Yo, you tuned in to Gorilla Cross Radio.
This is your guy, Dre Bailey.
And your man, Goose Thomas.
Tune in to Let the Ball Bounce on Gorilla Cross Radio.
Every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific Coast time.
And every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific Coast time. Your guy, Dre Bailey.
And your man, Goose Thomas.
And if you scared,
You better go to church.
Broadcasting live from downtown Las Vegas, you're tuned in to Gorilla Cross Radio.
Welcome back to Levels. Coming to you live from Gorilla Cross Studios, downtown Las Vegas, doing our thing. You just heard Jake Chaudhry. I always want to call him Caudry. Sorry about that, Jay.
That's probably
A
not
great guest, man. A lot of great insight. Point me to the lie that he said. I mean, the numbers are there. The people are there. You offer it up to them. They determine. The market always determines how everything plays out. And there you go. So people buying KSI.
He
Logan
wasn't
Paul
slanging
too.
no doo-doo.
No.
This was real stuff.
No. So talking about Canelo, talking about boxing, staying with that very quickly. It got me thinking about the best middleweights of all time. Got me thinking about who should be on this, or who currently is on the Mount Rushmore of middleweights. Is Canelo there yet? Number one, is Canelo there yet for you with this light heavyweight victory? No,
he's not there yet. He's making. I think that this win was actually him making the statement that people need to be talking about him being part of the Mount Rushmore. But
so
I
he
just
gets an
don't think
honorable mention.
He doesn't even get an honorable mention. Like he's like at the little kids table, and they're talking about him at the grown-ups table.
One day you're gonna be at the grown-ups table.
Then one day
with this Popeye's chicken sandwich and these dry biscuits.
Right. Well,
Okay.
Popeye's biscuits good.
So who's on your Mount Rushmore?
Well, I mean, obviously, here's the thing. I struggle with Sugar Ray Robinson being number one on the list because I was looking at fighters who have spent their entire career or most of their career at middleweight. He didn't. But you look at the man's record, how could he not be number one on the mountain?
Sugar Ray
I'm going with
Robinson.
Sugar Ray.
I think the original Sugar Ray too.
Yeah, the original.
the original
he gets
Sugar.
points for that too. He gets points
He
for
gets
being
points
the
for that.
original.
That's a great name. I love you guys starting to put Shane Mosley, Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard. Lots of sugar in there. Sugar Ray
Sugar
Robinson, 174-19 with 109 KOs. The original, boxer. The guy just fought anyone. Who wants to fight? He would look down the hallway. Who's down there? Who's down there?
Anyway.
All right, let's go fight. And he
Drag
would,
him out.
for a long time. Of course, again, like I said earlier, fighters, boxers, they always most of the time go out on their shield. A lot of these losses Sugar Ray Robinson had were later, of course, in his career and everything. But 109 KOs.
Yeah,
I knocked up 109 fools, and I tell you right now, I knocked these guys out. Some of them
I
twice.
couldn't knock down 109 bowling pins. So
Sugar Ray Robinson has got to be on there. What do you think about Roy Jones Jr., Marvin Hagler, or Hagler, depending on which part of the country?
I don't have any problem with them, and I don't have a problem with B-Hop. Here's the controversy for me is that Roberto Duran has to be replaced on the list by Carlos Monzon.
Carlos Monzon replacing.
Yeah, he would replace it.
So the list I wrote out was Sugar Ray Robinson, Roy Jones Jr., Marvin Hagler, B-Hop, Bernard Hopkins, Roberto Duran. And then I left off some notables. Sugar Ray Leonard, Carlos Monzon, Dick Tiger, Jake LaMotta, Raging Bull, Tommy Hearns.
He had a movie, so technically that, his history is archived. We're not going to put you on the mountain, though. So you can have the mountain.
Honestly, of all of these on here, Roberto Duran kind of stands out to me, too.
Had
if you
some
replace
memorable ones.
If you replace him, or even, Yeah, no, just Roberto Duran.
I look at somebody like Carlos Mazan, the Argentinian, and very troubled guy, very volatile, violent guy. He passed in '95, I believe, while he was out on work release. Crashed the car and unfortunately passed away due to injuries. But really had some problems outside the ring. But in the ring, 87, 3-9, and I believe his first fight was a second round knockout and really didn't look back after that.
Yeah.
And I think this is a guy who was in on the wave of crossover fighters in terms of Spanish speaking fighters. He was from Argentina. And just before the major TV cards were showing up, this is when the fights were on network TV.
Right.
I used to listen to fights on the radio with my granddaddy. This was well after him, but so he was just before I think the big marketing pushes showed up. But in terms of going on the Mount Rushmore and his style and what he was able to do, I would put him there over somebody named Roberto Duran, but I will seriously fight you if Roy Jones or Hagler have to come off that list.
Yeah, I agree. Two guys right there that in their prime. Who wanted to fight? And B-Hop? I mean,
and how many divisions did they fight in, too?
Yeah. Like
Oh,
all
who's
kinds of
the other guy?
divisions, everything. So there you go.
All
Oh, a
the
little
divisions.
fun, always fun to
Yeah.
debate, you know.
But Canelo is not there yet. He's at the
he's
little
not there
kids'
yet.
table, and the adults are talking about him, saying one day you might be at the big kids' table.
Well, it's always fun. You know what is undeniable is we're still getting comments here from our last guest. My friend Keith saying the DAZN is trash. Absolutely.
No. Let me tell you. Let me tell you.
Not the
DAZN,
company itself.
Yeah.
I like the company itself. Their production right now, they got to figure
There's
that out.
some problems with the production, and I've been in the arena when
Chris
there's
Mannix!
problems with the production in the arena too. It is frustrating, but you know they're getting their toe in the water and they're up to their ankles now. So
Can I
time to
chime
get
in real quick? We're
Mm.
watching it on TV. We had a UFC party.
Right.
We're watching it on TV after UFC, obviously. And they're doing the video intros for them coming in the ring, but they're filming the video screen as they're walking in.
That's something I would do, right?
They didn't
Yeah.
broadcast that.
Right. Yeah. The delay was prevalent throughout the whole day.
And you said, I mean,
That's
you
a
were
mess
there.
I would
You
do.
were there at MGM, and they started
Yeah.
playing the main event.
I
of
didn't
UFC.
even know. Right. So a group of the media went back to the media room, and we were looking for milkshakes at that point because we were like, this thing's gonna be hell for a minute. And then we started to get text messages from colleagues saying they are showing the UFC 244 here in the arena. And there was one of our colleagues actually from the RJ, shout out to Heidi, who bought the UFC event. So it was on her laptop, and she was like, this is unbelievable because I paid for this. I could have watched it for free on the big screen in the arena. So it was
They got to
real
get
some
that
nonsense.
figured out, man.
Yeah, y'all got to quit playing. Quit playing
They're
with people.
the announce team, the fight team. You know,
You're not feeling them at all.
I'm not
Chris
feeling
Mannix
them.
is
There's no chemistry.
not filling
There's
your bucket.
awkward questions, but
Yeah.
I understand the position. All of a sudden, the producers in your ear saying, "Hey, you got to stall for another hour," and then all of a
An
sudden
hour
you're
and a half.
thrown into an awkward interview with Chris Mannix and Canelo, where it's Chris Mannix does not speak Spanish, Canelo does not speak English.
He does,
So they-
though. Canelo just refuses.
He just
Canelo's
refuses to
English
do
is
it.
just as good as Gennady Golovkin.
But
English is.
he doesn't do it, so they got
Yeah.
this weird kind of interview there, and
It was real goofy.
it's such a turnoff. And part of
Yeah.
boxing, like Showbox, Showtime Boxing and stuff like that, and even PBC, they have it down to a science.
Well, they've
you
been
know?
doing it for
They've been doing it for a while.
million years.
They've been
but
doing it for a while.
They
I
got
get
their
that.
own problems because you've been doing it so long that now your bread is stale, and you need to get back to the bakery and make some new stuff.
Yeah, it's
But-
painful. It's downright painful. at
But
this point.
I was watching.
You spend that much money on fighters, you gotta spend a little on your production, man.
Yeah, but they had fight out of Japan. It was at 4:30 this morning
Yep.
Pacific Standard Time. The Monster and Nonito Donaire. Anyway, is the future of the bantamweight division. But here's the cool
Anyway.
thing: I fell asleep. I was up, and my daughter was up at 2:30
Look,
harassing me.
We're
and then-
parents, man.
Right.
The
and
fact
I
that you even tried, you
I
get points for
tried,
that.
man. But I was
thought
able
about
to
it.
run it back. It's on the app. I don't know if it's still up, but it was as
Sure will
of
be.
2 hours ago. So now you can sit back and I tell you what, the 11th round of that fight is probably top 3 of best rounds this year.
Really?
Any division.
Fight of the year candidate.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
I did not watch it because
And I saw
of
it on
what I
DAZN.
noted earlier, and I'm tired thinking about it now.
Sleep.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. Yeah. Talking about the future of boxing and everything. Great cards happening all over the world. For boxing, they just got to keep that momentum going.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes it's those heavyweights that move the world and move the
moving
needle,
the
move the
needle.
sport. And we got a big one coming up with Deontay Wilder
Mm-hmm.
taking on Luis Ortiz. And we're going to talk about it every single show until it happens, because
Pretty much.
who knows what's really going to happen, even though most people are picking Wilder by knockout.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that is the case, but a lot of fun that first fight was.
Guys can get old and around, and that
They
was the
can.
first fight. Gennady Golovkin looked significantly different in that second fight
that makes me
against
sad.
Canelo. He looked a lot different, actually, in his most recent fight as well. So
That
when
made
we
me
see
sad.
Ortiz again, I'm curious to see how much time has caught up with him. Because I think he's like 97 on paper, but he's saying, how old is he saying he is?
97. He's Cubano.
Yeah, let's see.
He
what
might
the-
be 800 years
what your
old. man.
government age is.
Yeah, he might be 800 years old.
Yeah,
man.
man. And Deontay
Cubans-
Wilder is something else.
Cubans are born at like 400. So, I mean,
think so.
you know, there you go.
But I do love me some Cubans, so I'm
Yeah.
mad at you.
No, I love the Cuban people and
Yeah.
Cuban sandwiches and things like that.
You foolish man. So we're up against it, right?
Yeah,
We
we're
had
up
something
against it.
planned, but
Before we
can-
go,
We got time
we
for it,
have
or we can punt?
no. We're gonna do this real quick.
Okay.
We have a closing segment. We'd like to introduce to everyone that we are calling at the moment. Let me level with you, where we're just gonna get some crap off our chest, and I am gonna turn it over to the Sportsnista.
Let me just say this real quick. Ding dong dummies, boxing is not dead. What's dead is the boxing that your daddy and your granddaddy knew. Boxing is showing up on apps now, on tablets now, and sometimes on TVs. It is also an international sport, dummies, just in case you didn't know that. There are fighters like the Klitschko's and Manny Pacquiao who are selling out whole countries, not just stadiums. Secondly, the heavyweights are back, my friend. We just talked about Wilder and Ortiz. And when the heavyweight needle moves, the whole boxing needle moves. There's a stable of young fighters, namely Shakur. Loma ain't that young no more, but he's still moving the needle for boxing. Canelo is still around, going to be jumping around some divisions. Network TV might have to do things a little bit differently, but PBC on Fox still presenting the sport to American fight fans. And finally, innovation. What we have to understand is, ding dong dummy, boxing's not dead. And stop fighting between UFC and MMA and boxing, because guess what? Gang. We all in the same family, fool.
I like it. I like it. Well, you know what? I will save mine for another time, since we've already been on here for about as long as Luis Ortiz has been alive. It's about 800 years now. So I'll save that for next show. But you can find us each and every Thursday right here, Gorilla Cross Studios,
Right.
doing our thing. CC, the Sportsnista. Thank you to our guest, Jay Caudry, for joining us from Break Media Group Agency, doing their thing in sports marketing. And for all of you who played along and watched on the live stream, and catch us later on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, all those wonderful places. For Quan59, I'm Jeremy Long. We'll see you next week.